So, Nancy, Democrats are calling for a separate investigation into the circumstances around Michael Flynn's resignation. What could hold that up?
Well, the fact that Republicans don't want one. I mean, they know that the optics of something like that would be very bad. Just think of Watergate, when you had an entirely separate committee looking into the White House. It had the appearance of putting the entire White House on trial, and they are not interested in that happening again. Beyond that, Republicans say that so much of what they are already looking at when it comes to Russia's attempts to meddle in the election, and now these conversations between Flynn and the Russians, is confidential, and there are sources and methods that need to be guarded. And so they say that the appropriate place to look at this is really in the intelligence committees in the Senate and the House, where they're already investigating and where a lot of that work takes place behind closed doors. Democrats say, sure, the intelligence committees have a role to play, but that's awfully convenient. If you sort of shuttle all this off behind closed doors, then how does the public really get to understand exactly what happened? So that's the clash you have going on right now between Democrats and Republicans.
There is also a call, though, for an investigation into another incident that happened and concerning national security matters. That sort of open air situation room, some are calling it, at MAR-A-LAGO. Where is that going, and is there going to be a true investigation moving forward?
Well, Jason CHAFFETZ, who is the chair of the House Government Oversight Committee, and who you might recall was very aggressive under the Obama administration about going after not just the administration, but also Hillary Clinton's private server. He's come under fire from Democrats from so far essentially saying, there's nothing I really want to look into when it comes to the Trump administration. But yesterday he did send a letter saying that he wants more information about the conversations that took place at Mar-A-Lago over the weekend between the president and Japanese officials. The pictures got out, and he says, I know that the White House claims that all of this discussion was not confidential, and that there was nothing wrong, but I just want to have more information. Democrats argue that that's kind of a sideshow, and that it's really meant to distract from the real issue, which they feel is the mounting evidence of communication, consistent communication between officials in this White House and the Russians during and after the campaign.
Nancy, really quickly before we go, there's no doubt that President Trump's election was transformational, but I've heard one Washington analyst say, look, the relationship between President Trump and his own party members is more transactional as opposed to transformational. Ronald Reagan was a transformational president. This is a president that the members of Congress, the GOP, feels they can get things from him, and that's perhaps why they're willing to look the other way when it comes to some of these issues. Your take on that?
There's no question that Republicans are kind of in a defensive crouch right now when it comes to Donald Trump. They are constantly having to answer for things that he has done and said, which is incredibly uncomfortable. But the reason that they tend to hold their fire is because, as you say, there are major pieces of business they think that they can get done with him that they never thought they'd have the opportunity to tackle, like repealing Obamacare, like rolling back regulations, like cutting taxes. They had already resigned themselves to the fact that Hillary Clinton was going to win and that they'd have to put off these priorities for another 4 years at the least. Then Donald Trump wins, and suddenly the world is their oyster. They control the House, the Senate, and the White House. So they're willing to put up with a lot, at least right now, Vlad, in order to try to get those things done.
All right, Nancy Cordes, thanks a lot.
You got it.